And I
Yeah.
was telling her that, no, we need to actively participate when it comes to helping Black aspiring chartered
Yeah.
accountants. We can't be complaining. Yes, I understand it, that CASA is the key.
Is this that? Yeah.
It's the key to opening doors. If you use the key, you're going to open multiple doors, and it's up to you. But if you don't use that key and you say that key is your destination, then you just have it in your pocket. You're not going to explore anything. So I knew going into the whole thing that whoever I was going to be around was going to be key, was going to be make or break. So
Did you do it in record time? What were the challenges in doing this, the CA qualification? Hello and welcome to How's Your Heart podcast. Igama langu ni Linda Kuhle. It is Linda for short. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. Today we have a guest. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Lindo. It's a very nice setup you've got here, I must say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you've joined us today. The podcast is How's Your Heart? How is your heart? And I specifically didn't ask you to prepare for this question because I wanted you to be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how's your heart?
You're putting me on the spot here. Well, to be honest, I think
Maybe like presently, how are you
Oh,
feeling?
yeah.
And
I
then
think-
maybe generally in life, where's your heart
I
at?
think presently I feel really good, you know. I think I thank God for the opportunity to be able to come and work in the UK because
Yeah.
it allowed me to filter a lot of the noise, a lot of the baggage, a lot of the things that I thought at the time I needed. But just coming here gave me a clearer and sounder mind where you actually realize, okay, what is important and what is not important.
Yeah.
And the moment you start focusing on the important things, you feel your heart becoming lighter and lighter and lighter.
Nice. Yeah.
And your mind just becoming clearer and clearer. And now I think close to 4 years in the UK, there's a lot of noise that I've blocked out, which has just made my heart just cleaner. So I think I'm at a point where I'm really just enjoying life.
That's
where
good.
I don't have any animosity in my heart. It's just free flowing. I look forward to each day, you know, and also just having a partner as well with me.
Yes.
It has also helped a lot because she also adds to that joy, you know. So yeah, I think my heart is good. I think my heart is in a really good place.
Yeah.
I'm just loving life for the moment.
That's so good. That's really good. I like that you talk about, the steps that you've taken in order to get where you are, because I think a lot of people will just want that kind of feeling of a clean heart, of just being free, but you have to put things in place in order to get to that point. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for putting me on the spot.
And there's one reason I didn't mention your name because I want to get into that. Your name is Thulani. Where does that come from? Because I know that you're from Zim, right? And I have an idea that there are Nguni people in Zim, but I don't know really like how big that is. So how is your name Thulani and you're from Zim?
That's a really good question. So maybe I can take you down memory lane and sort of give you a brief history lesson. So,
Yes, we love history.
So back in the days, back in the early 19th century, Shaka Zulu was a big part of Nguni culture. They established the Zulu kingdom, which is at the time was very powerful. I think still powerful
Still
today.
is, yeah.
But at the time it was very powerful. It was a kingdom actually. It was a nation. And even when white people migrated to Africa, it still remained a nation. And they realized that there was a Zulu nation also in South Africa at the time. So before that, just a little bit recently, but before that, not too far from that point when white people came to South Africa, Shaka had a lot of other warriors that he had in his camp, but some of them also wanted to ascend to the throne at some point. But obviously it was a touch and go subject because obviously the kingship is for the lineage, is for the king's lineage.
Yeah.
So that led to a breakaway where some people left the Zulu kingdom and started traveling north. So that's where part of my people are. So they started traveling north. Your Lobengulas, your Mzilikazis, they traveled north. And some of them didn't go all the way. Some of them settled in the southern part of Rhodesia, Zimbabwe currently. And then some of them moved to the eastern islands of Zimbabwe. And some of them proceeded all the way north to present-day Matabeleland and Bulawayo. So my people are part of that camp that moved to the eastern islands of the country.
Right.
So which means in our family, there is Zulu heritage. And that's where Thulani comes from.
Yeah.
But now to go into make it more specific to me and my family. So my parents married. My mom was very, very young at the time. My dad was 10 years older than my mom.
Okay.
So they had kids quick. They had 3 kids, on the bounce, 2 years difference. And then after that, I think my mom was done. She was like, I think this is it. This is our family. Let's get on with our lives. But I think my dad wanted that 4th child, So I think it took time, them just talking about it, saying, okay, what will that look for us? How will that look? But now, at that time, my mom was also now a senior person at work. So she's like, I'm also focusing on my career. But my dad is like, I've always wanted 4 kids. So, and then 5 years later, that's when it happened.
Oh, wow.
So my dad named me Thulani to assure my mom that now we're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's where the
a
Thulani
story.
comes from. Because people, whenever I say Thulani, people just think silence. But the context in this case was, and then we're done. And then we get quiet.
Okay.
And then we can be quiet. Yeah.
That is so interesting. Thank you for that history lesson. Because I remember seeing your name on Teams. So we met at our previous firm. We worked together in different departments, and I remember seeing your name. I was like, okay, your name, surname, it screams South Africa.
Yeah.
And then I heard you saying like you're from Zimbabwe, and I was like, okay, that's different because my previous flatmate is from Zim as well. Her name is Zanele. She was on the podcast as well, but her surname gives it away because she has a Shona surname, and you have Thulani Dliwayo. It's like I could have sworn you were closer at some point. Yeah. So that's very interesting. And you being the 4th child, how is that upbringing? How is it growing up in Zimbabwe? And maybe also specifically in your family as well.
Yeah. Well, growing up in Zimbabwe is so multifaceted. I mean, Zimbabwe became independent in 1980. My father was fairly young at the time, but old enough because he actually also went to the war. He joined the army at a very young age. Very funny story. I think it was 1964, if I'm not mistaken, or 1968. Between those two,
yeah,
these guys were in their final year of high school, and my dad and his friends are sitting on the table in high school, and then they just go like, "Dudes, why are we here? Why aren't we also fighting with the others?" And then literally they left school that night and they started walking because he was learning in Tehwane, which is in Matabeleland.
Okay.
So which is very close to the Botswana border. So they literally just up and left. They ran away from school, went to Botswana. When they got to Botswana, they got arrested because that's the only way the Botswanian president could keep them safe. He would arrest them and then they would go into jail. Then he would contact the camps. So there were 2 camps. There was one in Zambia, which was being led by ZAPU forces. And then there was one in Mozambique and Tanzania, which was being led by ZANLA. So my dad ended up joining the ZANLA forces, which was in Mozambique to begin with. And then he moved to Tanzania, where he did his training. And then during his training, I think the guys noticed that this guy is clever, the warrior background coming from the Zulu kingdom. So he ascended very quickly. And then he went to Egypt for intelligence training because that's where the guys were doing intelligence. And then he came back, fought a lot of battles from 72 up until independence, 79.
Wow.
At that time, he was now a colonel in the army. So he was a very, very senior person. I remember my grandfather, his dad, telling me that in 1982 when he came to Zim, now when he came to Harare, now Zimbabwe is independent, he came to Harare to see his boy. And then they're driving to his workplace in a car. And when they get to the gate, the guys are saluting my dad and they're opening the gate. So it's like, wow, he felt so proud. So basically tying that to my upbringing, my dad was a military guy. So he was very strict, very, very strict. So the other three were lucky because they were 2 years apart, very close. So he wasn't as strict with them because he didn't believe he needed to. So with me, he told me, well, later in life, but at the time, his thinking was, I'm the last born. And normally, the last born kids get spoiled and then they normally spiral down the wrong lane. So he was like, he didn't want that for me. So he was very, very strict. He introduced reading to me at a very, very young age. I remember as early as grade 3, he would make me sit on the desk and tell me to read. He would bring books and tell me to read. At the time, obviously, I'm a young child. I want to be playing outside with other kids, So I'm like, dude, what is this guy doing? So I'm like, no, let me just do it. Because normally at the time, he would time maybe 3 to 4 hours. So I was like, okay, let me just sit here, do nothing, look at this book. By the time 4 hours is up, I'll go outside and play with the guys. So he saw it, but he knew at some point, it's going to get boring for me to just sit there. I'm going to start reading. So by the time I then got to grade 7, which is the final year of primary, reading was already in me. Like I could read from anywhere from 5 to 7 hours without breaking a sweat because it's something that had been instilled in me. So he was very big on discipline. I remember the one time. When you start watching TV and you start interacting with other people from outside your own family, you start trying new things. So I think we watched
acting fresh.
Yeah, I think we watched the movie. I think it's called There's a Menace in Your Neighborhood or something. It's an American movie. And the guys were sagging their trousers. So I was like, I need to try this thing. So I also sagged my trousers.
And how old are you at the time?
At the time, I'm in grade 5. So I think I'm 8 years old at that time. So I get home, my pants are sagged. Wow, I received the biggest slap of my life. And from that day onwards, I wear my pants to my waist with a belt. He's told me that a man wears his pants to his waist with a belt on. So I just caught on from there onwards. So my upbringing. So and then my mother on the other side was very soft with me. She would just sit me down. Don't worry. When my dad is not there and I'm saying, this guy looks like he doesn't really like me. I was like, oh, he's just trying different things. At the time, obviously, I'm a kid. I didn't understand. But it was a perfect balance because they went on like that all the way up until when I was in university. Because if I check when I was in university, at some points I could call home and tell my mom, hey, this is what I got in the exam or in a test. Then my mom would be like, that's good enough, that's very good, my son. My dad would be like, no, this is not good enough. This is not what we're sending you to do in school. So it was a perfect balance because had I just received that one where it's like it's not good enough, maybe it may have killed my confidence, or that I received the one which is just pampering me and saying this is good, maybe
you don't
I may have
yourself.
believed exactly. I may have just stayed stagnant and I wouldn't grow. So it was perfect. It was literally the perfect upbringing. But at the time, it didn't feel like it only felt like it once I was older and once I could reason and really talk to my dad. Because for a larger part, I couldn't talk to the guy. The guy obviously is busy. He leaves home very early in the morning, comes very late at night. Then when you get few moments to speak to him, it's always discipline. It's always like, I can't talk to this guy. But when I got older and I then started showing the qualities that he had been instilling in me all the time, I started seeing the respect grow. You can, because most people say, I wasn't friends with my dad or I wasn't friends with my mom. But for me, I started seeing my dad start to respect me more and more, and it started turning into a friendship. So it came from a point where I was a child in his eyes till I proved to him that, no, now I'm actually growing up. I can make sound decisions and I can follow some of the lessons that you've taught me growing up. So in a nutshell, that's what my
That's
upbringing
really
was
good.
like.
That's really good. I just want to go back on the story that you told in the beginning. Are those the stories that you would hear as a child, or did you get to speak to your dad about his experience and how you got into the army when now you got to like being friends and respecting each other in that
Oh,
way?
yeah. So initially these were just stories, stories that you hear from different people. My
Mm,
grandfather being one of them, um, and then as I got older, uh, now I could start speaking to my dad. So my dad is writing a book. So he's writing a book about his own perspective on the whole Chimurenga and the war days, how he
mm,
saw it in his own eyes, and also his tenure in the government up until the past president got removed or left office.
mm.
So he's just writing. So now he's been writing this book for I think past 10 years, which
Oh
includes
wow.
a lot of research and
Mm,
whatever, traveling to different places where some of these battles actually happened, speaking to locals, etc., going to some of the training camps.
mm.
So now, as I was older during this process, now I could speak to him. I
Right.
could ask some things, and now I had a better understanding as well, because some of it was, as much as we didn't realize at the time, some of it was very traumatic. So,
Mm,
for example, uh, I've got a sister. She's the second born in our family. She's based in the United States. So
mm,
she graduated in her first degree. I think it was around 2012, 2013. I was still in high school, but close to finishing. So my mom and my dad went
mm,
to the United States for the graduation. So my sister was so excited. The parents are there. She's like, I need to take you guys to museums. I need to take you to the gun sites. I need to. So they went to museums, and then they went to this gun site. So when they
mm,
went inside, obviously my dad doesn't know where he's going, right? He gets into this place where there's a lot of these guns, rifles, and he's
mm.
talking about history, and he just broke down, started
Wow.
crying, and he left the
Mm,
place. So when I think of things like that now, also it made me understand my upbringing even more now.
yeah.
Like this was someone who was how he brought me up and how I turned out to be and the state of the mind that he was in. I actually
Mm,
give him credit. I give him
yeah.
kudos because I think if it was me, I would have broken down into
Yeah.
pieces.
That-
So yeah, yeah.
That's really
So
commendable
yeah,
because I think with a lot of mental health and conversations nowadays, a lot of people are scared to have kids because they don't want to,
pass
pass
on.
on that trauma and to have someone that can experience those things and
Yeah.
still, be present in being a
Exactly,
parent.
exactly. And that actually shows that they did very well because in their days, nothing there's nothing called mental health in
Yeah,
their
yeah,
days. You just stick in your own corner, probably drink a couple of whiskeys, and then just
that's it.
drown it down.
Yeah.
Because yeah, and I don't think I would be able to sleep having some of the things you're seeing
Mm,
in my mind without also,
mm,
because when those guys went, they were very very young, and then they
yeah.
came back. They didn't do any rehabilitation, any, because these are people who lived in the jungle for a very long time.
Mm,
When you come back, you're supposed to go through some sort of cleansing process. You're supposed to also
mm,
go through rehabilitation. You're supposed to talk to professionals. You're
yeah.
supposed to be re acclimatized
Integrated.
or
Yeah.
reintegrated into society,
Mm,
back into society. So they didn't do that, and
mm,
that's the one part they really missed. But I mean, I can't really blame them as well because a
mm,
lot was happening at the time. I think now I sort of understand his
mm,
frame of mind a little bit better.
mm.
Now
I
that I'm
think,
older.
yeah, I think that's the beauty of growing older and still having a relationship with your parents. You understand from their perspective because you look at yourself and you're like, oh, what would I have done? And now I'm possibly at that age. Like, am I mature enough to have experienced what they have gone through and all of that? And I can see like you have much respect for your dad,
Oh yeah,
and
same.
I'd love to have that conversation more about like the war and everything because I didn't know anything about it,
Yeah.
and I think it's very interesting. But getting into our conversation today about your journey as a CA, and you mentioned obviously from Zimbabwe. How do you find yourself in South Africa and
Okay.
not doing the CA equivalent in
In
Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe. All right. So So in our family, we are 4 kids. So there's the firstborn, which is my brother, and then there's the secondborn, which is my sister. So my brother at the time was based in South Africa.
Okay.
He moved to South Africa straight after high school. He moved to SA, and then my sister moved to the US, and then my other sister also moved to South Africa. So based on that heritage that we have from being initially part of a Zulu tribe, I guess the South Africa in my ancestors never left. So, for example, my grandfather worked in South Africa. That's where he worked his whole life. During also the struggle days, he was actually very good friends with the late Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Funny story, when my dad was going to Singapore the one time for a meeting, he stopped in South Africa for 2 days. So when he was at the airport in South Africa waiting to be picked up by his driver,
Yeah.
Mangosuthu saw him. Then he said, "Hey, when I Emon, we'll car." So he's like, no, Emon is my father.
Yeah.
So because they look so alike, so Mangosuthu thought that was his father.
Wow.
So and at that time, Mangosuthu was the what do you call this, acting president, because I think Mbeki had gone somewhere, so he made Mangosuthu the acting president. So my father actually spent those 2 days at the presidential house in South Africa with Mangosuthu, catching up. He was asking about his father. He's like, how is he? That type of thing. So basically South Africa had always been in our genes. So now my grandfather had my father, had his firstborn, and then moved to South Africa. So back in the days, the men would go work and leave their wives
Of
in
course.
the rural areas.
Yeah.
But he spent 5 years without coming back. So my grandmother was like to my dad, no, man,
Go.
get your bags, let's go, let's follow your father. So they went to South Africa, and my father spent 5 years there. So that's how the idea of South Africa, he knew South Africa, he knew how good they were economically, etc. So coming back to Zimbabwe, in 2008, we had the Great Depression. The worldwide economy took a hit from how the economies crashed, and then that also ruined Zimbabwe, which at the time as well had sanctions. So
Still.
economic opportunities, some sanctions are still there, but now at least they are on targeted individuals. Most of them have been removed, but so at the time, my dad wanted his kids to go somewhere where they can have better economic outcomes.
Okay.
So that's how he then sent my brother to South Africa. So my brother went to South Africa. He went to Monash University, which at the time was an Australian university, but with a South African campus. So he went there, did his 3 years of accounting, and then he met Professor Ben Marks, Prof. Ben, and then he introduced him to the whole idea of UJ. So he then went to University of Johannesburg to do his CTA. Then he became a CA. So now, my dad had done accounting and finance, but he then didn't go all the way to become a CA because he then pivoted into government and he was working in government. But he already knew the accounting way. And then my brother was now a CA. So now we had 2 generations of professional accountants, people who knew accounting. So that's how I was introduced to South Africa.
Right.
So when I finished my high school studies, I wanted to take a gap year. At that time, I'm young. At that time, I'm now dating. I have a girlfriend back home. And then my parents just wanted me to go to high school, to university straight after high school. But I didn't want, because I wanted to be with my girlfriend for a year. Then we can figure out where do we go, etc. So my parents caught wind of this, And then my dad was like, so my brother was like, I'm renovating my house. At that time, he's already staying in Joburg, working at KPMG. He's like, I'm renovating my house. Come through and help the guys who are working as I'm at work. So I'm like, no, it's cool. So I went there 2013 December. When I'm there, he says, dude, we have already applied for a place for you at UJ. So you have to go to school, etc.
There goes the gap year.
And now, I haven't really communicated with her and but now there's nothing I can do because I'm already there, So I asked, I'm like, so when does school start? Then it's like, UJ normally starts end of January. So I'm like, okay, cool. So let me just go back home, speak to my girlfriend, pack my clothes, etc. And then I'll come back properly. So after the renovations is done, end of December, I go back to Zim. Then I start chatting to my dad. I'm like, dude, I don't think I'm ready for university yet. I want a year, etc., etc. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. You need to go. So January, I went. When I got to UJ, the guys were like, nah. In high school, in my final years, I did accounting, uh, history, and business studies. So the maths, so they said you need to have maths in order for you to have accounting. So the only time I done maths was in O levels, which is Form 4, and I had a B in maths. But at the time when I did O level, that's when Cambridge, because I was at a Cambridge school, so
Okay.
Cambridge changed their grading systems. So I had 76%, but it was a B. Whereas normally the year before that, 76% was an A, even close to an A star. So the guys were like, no, you need an A. And I was like, but dude, it's 76% here, which is normally here in South Africa, it's an
Yeah,
A.
it's an A.
So the guy is like, nah,
Yeah.
the guy's name is Mahlatsi. He's like, nah, man, we can't do that because it's university policy. So at that time in my heart, I'm actually low-key happy. I'm like, "Ah, now I can go back to Zim, now I don't have to enroll." So now my brother calls my dad. He's like, but dad, I did my undergrad studies at Monash. Monash is a good school. He can do the same. He can just do his undergrad at Monash and then do honors at UJ. So my brother goes to Monash. He's friends with all the guys in the enrolling department. So they enrolled me quickly. And then he just came home. He showed me the papers. Like, dude,
This is what you're doing.
You're starting on the 1st of Feb. You're going to Monash. At that time, I was already prepping to go back home. I'm like, my gap year is finally alive. So that's what led me to South Africa. Sorry, it's a very long story, but
Wow, what were you planning to do in your gap year?
well, so at the time, so my dad is a farmer. So most of my years when I was in high school, I was farming like with him on the ground. Like uh, there's literally nothing I don't know about farming. So in that gap year, I wanted to do farming, wanted to just continue. I think at the time we were farming soya, we're doing potatoes, we're doing green mealies, and we're doing maize, and we're also doing animal husbandry. So I was enjoying it. I mean, farming was nice. I mean, because it was a way for me to make my own money as well. Because my dad would actually pay me just like all the other workers. So it was good. And, I was getting paid for something that we actually owned. So it didn't feel like a job as well. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. So I was thinking, now I'm going to farm with this guy for a year, and I'm going to be with my girlfriend spending time. Now I've got money. I'm out of school. So, we do a lot of things, but they had different plans. So, and the whole accounting thing, right? It was contentious as well because I naturally in high school, I was very confident. I was very good at public speaking. I was the president of the current affairs club, and I was the president of the quiz club, and I was the head of house, which is equivalent to a vice head boy because
Yeah.
we had a head boy and we had three heads of houses. So I wanted to go into law. I thought
Of
I had a
course.
natural inkling
Of
with
course.
law. So that was the other contentious part where my dad and my brother were like, dude, law, yes, it's good, but they already knew because the one thing my brother has always done and my dad, they're very meticulous about things. They study things. So what they knew was there was a critical skills list in South
Yeah.
Africa. And they
Yeah.
knew for you to be able to get a visa as a foreigner, you need to have a critical skill. So unfortunately, with law is ring fenced. So as much
To the
as it is
country,
a
yeah.
critical skill, but it's ring fenced to South Africans. So even if you study law in South Africa, you
You
won't be
can't.
able to get a visa. So it'll be harder. So that was their thinking. So yeah, that it was a bit contentious when it came to actually selecting
Yeah.
the degree, but they ended up winning, of course.
I remember, I think I also wanted to do law. I don't know what was going on, but I remember my dad asked me, and I said, "Oh, yeah, I want to be a lawyer." And he's a pastor, so he was like, "You're not going to lie on behalf of people."
And it's true, eh? Because law, at some point you're gonna have to. You're gonna have to lie.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about your journey as a CA. Because there's a lot. Obviously,
Yeah,
7 years is a long time.
yeah,
Did you do it in record time? What were the challenges in doing the CA
yeah, yeah.
qualification?
I did it in record time, but I don't want to brag. I didn't have a choice. My dad and my brother were on my neck the whole time. My journey was actually quite interesting because the moment I started doing accounting and finance at Monash, I actually fell in love with it. Um, it was obviously a challenging degree, you know that, but I had I had such amazing connections with people in school. So I was staying in my brother's house. I wasn't in res, which I think was one positive. So
Yeah.
my brother's house was 20 minutes away from school, and I'll take a taxi to school, which is a commuter omnibus. They call them combis in Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
because people would think maybe these fancy
Yeah.
London taxis. No, no, no.
Take a cab every day.
Exactly.
You're there in the back
I
seat,
was
like.
short left. I was saying short left in the taxi going to school. So it was quick. It wasn't anything bad. And then I met a lady called Michelle Kirsten. I think she's actually now the head of studies at Monash now. But we were in the same stream at the time. So Michelle used to stay like 50 minutes away from from uni, but she would come pick me up and we'd go together to school. She was such a lovely soul, you know. We just liked each other from the get go. She was just a beautiful person, you know, inside and outside, and we were studying the same thing. We'd study together, and then Michelle introduced me to Marco, another friend of mine who became a friend, still friends today. He's now based here in the UK, but he's left this accounting world. He started his own things. And then I also met a guy called John Duval, one of my best friends in high school. Still keep in touch, but obviously now people are busy. And then I met, so that was undergrad. Undergrad was fairly straightforward for me. First year was actually very easy because most of the subjects we did in undergrad in first year, I'd done in A level. So I was acing it, I was cruising. I remember my first few months, I was at home studying. Obviously, I told you earlier, studying was innate, it was in me. So I was studying for very long hours. And my brother came to me, he's like, dude, why are you studying so long? You're in first year, enjoy your first year, second year, third year. There's gonna come a time when you have to do it. And you need to have the energy, and that's CTA. And up until today, I thank my brother for that, because surely in CTA I needed it. So undergrad, I think I was just, I was average. I was just getting average marks, but I made it through. Already smart. I knew I was smart, but I was just using a different strategy. Because when CTA came, I think about 400 people enrolled to begin with at Monash, and I ended up doing my CTA at Monash. And in the end, I was 16th in the stream. So most people were shocked. They're like, wow, how are you doing so well? But all along, I knew, my brother told me, no, reserve the tank. You're going to need it in CTA, you know. So my friend who I met in CTA called Sia, he came from UJ and he helped me a lot. He always used to laugh. He's like, hey, where are the summa cum laudes now? He's killing you. So he's a funny character. But Sia was one of the people who helped me a lot, because the one subject I knew, if I failed CTA, it was going to be financial accounting. Everything else I was very comfortable with, but financial accounting was so tough. So one day we are sitting in a tutorial, we're in a TAT, and we have, obviously, I used to prepare meticulously before the TAT. I would sit in front of the class all the time. So the lecturer asked, who wants to answer the TAT questions we had this week? So obviously, being an energetic student, I lift up my hand. I'm like, I got this. And then I answer, and she's listening. And in the end, she's like, oh, that's a good answer, well thought through, but unfortunately, it's wrong.
Oh.
And then Sia was in the back of the class. At that time, I don't know Sia. And then he lifts up his hand. He's like, can I try? Then the teacher's like, yes, you can try. And he aces this question. It was deferred tax on PPE.
That's the worst.
He aces it word for word. In fact, there's a part that the lecturer actually adopted his answer to then distribute to the class. So after the lesson, I went to this guy. I'm like, how do you know that? How did you know that answer? So he just liked me from that moment, because it's like, I've never met someone like that who's saying, why do you know something that I don't know? You know? So we became very close, and he helped me with financial accounting. And then it turns out he also didn't like auditing much. I loved auditing. You know, I knew how to explain those fancy topics because my brother was marking exams and used to coach me a lot. So I knew exactly how to approach questions. So undergrad was interesting. Undergrad was fun. CTA was more challenging.
Yeah.
I remember I had visa issues coming back for CTA because I did a 3-year undergrad, so I got a visa for 3 years. And then now when you do CTA, it's 1 year, so you need to apply for another visa. So my visa took time to come back. I remember my dad had to actually go speak to the South African ambassador, and then came 2 weeks later. But in CTA, 2 weeks is a long
It's a
time.
long time,
You know?
yeah.
So I came in the third week, and in the fourth week, it was test one. So I had only a week to prepare. And I remember I got 46% in that test. And I called my mom. So my mom was like, how was the test? Because they already knew my program. So my
Yeah.
parents were also very spot on with my education. So they knew all the
What was
programs. They
happening,
knew
yeah.
the timelines. So they're like, how was test one? Test one was right, but I was late. You guys know, and I got 46%. My mom was like, "Oh, that's a very good mark. What's the average?" And I think the class average was like 33%.
Yeah.
So she's like,
Yeah,
that's
it's
good.
tough.
And my dad took the phone. He's like, "Dude, we didn't send you there to get 46%. That's not what we sent you to do." So from that moment onwards, I knew I had to pull up my socks. There were no excuses. If I couldn't use the excuse that I was late, and he knows why we were late. He was part of the process.
Yeah. I'm just thinking as you're speaking about the importance of being surrounded by the right people. Because I think I definitely got into the wrong crowd in first year. And, getting surrounded by people that will actually help you and you help them in turn. And also things that are very ordinary. I think people sometimes want to do, to pass, but don't want to do the ordinary on an everyday basis. So, like, how important is that for you? Because there's sometimes distractions that can lead you astray from what you want to do, and actually from those communities that you've created. How do you make sure that you keep in line with the people that are going to bring out the best in you?
Yeah, and I think that's very important, especially if you're planning on doing things like becoming a chartered accountant or becoming a doctor or becoming an engineer, because these are pathways where they're not very singular. Yes, the jobs can be singular where you're expected to perform on your own, but the journey to the designation can be singular because of the weight of the subjects and the weights of the degrees. So for me, I knew going into the whole thing that whoever I was going to be around was going to be key, was going to be make or break. So Monash, if you meet people who know Monash, it's a very interesting place
Yeah.
because you get everything there. If you want to party,
Yep.
the rock stars are there. It's a private university, so they're very wealthy kids there. So if you also want to go with the wealthy kids and just have fun, that pathway is also there. So these are things that I understood from the get go, and I knew if I go there, I need to foster relationships that are going to help me. So I've always known that my greatest asset is my network, not my net worth. Your network is what ensures where you go,
Yeah.
who you know, who you talk to, and what you avoid. And what you avoid, that last piece is so key because a lot of people don't think about it.
Yeah.
But what you avoid is so important. I had a friend of mine who went into first year from Zimbabwe at the same time, and we had the same points. I got 13 points at A level. He also got 13 points at A level. But that guy spent 6 years in school doing undergrad, and I don't even think he managed to complete his degree. Well, I never followed up, but I don't think so. Anyways, because I would have known. Why? Why the stark difference? Because he was in a different crowd. I remember vividly, because we were friends. We were good friends. But he was part of the cool kids.
Yeah.
So when they would,
That's where I'm at.
when they when they would plan parties, right?
Yeah.
He was the guy. They were the guys. And then he would specifically tell people that we can't invite Thulani and this crew because they're not
gonna
gonna
bring
make us
down-
likable.
yeah.
Exactly. The girls are gonna run away. That was the exact statement. Because we were nerds, we were nerds. We just, I think the only thing we did for fun was play soccer at the ball court. So people after classes, people would see us playing soccer at the ball court. That was our recreation. We didn't go to parties. In fact, we were never invited for parties in varsity, which was something that rubbed me the wrong way at the time. But now it's something that
Yeah.
I'm so okay with. I'm actually okay with the fact that we were never part of the cool kids. So But the reason why that happened was because of the crowds I was hanging out
Yeah.
with. I was hanging out with people who were determined together.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated by, you know, male mentorship. And also because I know the kind of impact that mentorship can have in your life. And it's something that I've done with a friend of mine before coming here. We started a nonprofit and to just mentor people in high school. And I find that even now, like growing older, I want to be mentored. I want to mentor younger people. And like just listening to you talking about your brother, your dad, talking about the people that are going to say, here's what I'm doing. And you kind of see, okay, is my path, aligning to that? Can I take inspiration from those people? Like, how important is that mentorship for you?
Wow, that's a great question. And I mean, you can ask my wife. Mentorship is a very key part of my life.
Mm,
Like I believe in mentorship from the get go. So I've been privileged, like you've mentioned. I've my dad, I've my brother, who've
mm,
always provided mentorship to me, and they've always been around me. But also, even outside of my brother, I've got people that mentor me. Even here in the UK, I've got people that were here maybe 20, 30 years
yeah.
ago. My wife is always laughing because I'm always talking to old men,
Mm,
who I just speak to and ask for advice and have relationship with. Even outside of work, we speak of different things, sport, and the like. So mentorship is key. And
mm,
also myself, I've received free mentorship from people, even from my dad and my brother. They don't owe me that courtesy to give me mentorship, but they've given it to me nonetheless.
yeah.
So I feel obliged to give mentorship back. So I remember I actually joined a membership program for Monash University, Australia. So I actually give free mentorship every year to
Oh,
alumni
wow.
who are now, yeah, graduating and looking for work,
Mm,
etc. So this is my third year now
wow.
mentoring. Um, and also back in South Africa, I've got people that I mentor from time to time. But for me, mentorship is very key to be able to navigate the market. Coming into South Africa might have been maybe an easier market
Mm,
for us as CAs because the designation is well known in the
yeah.
country, and easier in quotes because obviously nothing is easy.
Mm,
But it's a market where CAs are well known, so we would have done very well just by applying ourselves and working very hard. Now, fast forward to the UK, the same is not true because
yep.
here you've got the CA profession is not really respected like
Yeah.
that in the UK. And then you've got people who are CAs, you've got ACA, and then which is ACA, and then you've got FCAs who are ICAEW, so
Mm,
the England and Wales one. And then you also have chartered accountants from Australia, New Zealand, you've got chartered accountants from Namibia. You've got chartered accountants
mm,
worldwide here in the UK. So you can't really say because I'm a CASA, pick me, guys. No, no, no.
yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
it's a fight.
Yeah.
So mentorship is now more key than ever because we now need to know how do we navigate in this new space that we don't know anything about. At least South Africa, there are people who've done it before us. There are people who are going to come after us. So you navigating it would be fairly simpler in those terms.
Mm,
So I've always gravitated towards mentorship. And the other thing I want to touch on as well on mentorship is is every year I always see the results coming out, be it
yeah.
CTA, be it board one, board two. The latest one that is causing furore on the market, especially on Twitter, is
APC.
APC board
Yeah.
two. Because people are like, but why should this be hard? Because someone has passed CTA, someone has passed board one, and then now why are they failing board two? Uh, my thing is this. I think a lot of people, especially the black people, because they're the ones who are feeling the brunt of this more
Mm,
in terms of not getting the pass rates that they so desire. I think first disclaimer is CASA results. They are never going to be 80%. Let's
yeah.
face it. Come on,
No.
that's why it's a well
Mm,
respected designation
mm,
because it's fairly hard to make it, which is why it's rewarding when you make it. But also in the same breath, uh, 30% pass rate is just too low. So I always hear aspiring chartered accountants saying, no, there's something is wrong, or maybe
mm,
there is some discrimination of some sort. And I always bring it back to mentorship. For example, when I was studying CTA or when I was doing board 2, board 1, I already knew blocks. I already had blocks that were put in place by my brother who would tell me that, dude, I remember in my second year, he asked me, he was marking papers, and he asked me a question. It's like, can you explain these assertions, applying them to this scenario? And I actually answered it and I laughed. I was like, why would you ask me such a stupid question? Then he says, no,
Randomly.
it's
Yeah.
not stupid and it's not random because people who are writing board 2 are failing that question. So I'm like, so why are you telling that to me? Then it's like, because it was so easy because you studied it yesterday in class. But by the time you get to board 2, you have forgotten these things, you studied them. So these are some of the things that you need to keep on top of. These things come from mentorship. So I was telling one of my colleagues the other day, I think you actually know her, Fulu. So she was also asking some of the directors from Psycha that what can be done about these things. And I
Yeah.
was telling her that no, we need to actively participate when it comes to helping Black aspiring chartered accountants. We can't be complaining. Yes, I understand when aspiring chartered accountants are complaining, Black chartered accountants. We need to reach out to them and be like, guys, this is the thing. You know, in my first CTA lecture, the senior lecturer said, you are here, we are here. We are not coming down to you.
Yeah.
You need to come up to us. And it's the same thing with the APC board exam. Those guys are not coming down. They're never going to reduce their level of testing or how hard it is or how in-depth you need to go. You need to climb up. How do you climb up? You also need help. But you also need to realize you need help. You need to raise up your hand and say, guys, I need help. Most of these trainees are struggling in their articles because let's face it, managers and partners, they don't care about your exam.
Yeah.
They need you to complete the engagements. And I don't say they don't care in a derogatory way. They're running businesses, right? They need to make
There's
money.
deadlines to make.
There's deadlines to make. So it's also not their fault. But if you are not mentored, if you don't know, like for me, at some point I was stuck for 3 months at a government audit. And I told my brother, I was like, dude, I've been auditing this thing for 3 months. He's like, no, that's not on. Speak to your manager. Tell them you need to move and you need to be at least taking part in some of their best clients. So I went to my manager. I was so scared. I remember that day I was shaking, but I told them, and I told them in a very polite way. And in 2 weeks' time, I got changed. I got moved into another audit. But if I didn't know, I would have just kept quiet, just kept going with the flow.
And complaining to other trainees as well.
Exactly. And by the time board 2 comes, you don't have that onset experience of actually applying, because that's what it is about. And most people complain we are not being put on nice clients. If you are quiet, you are never going to be put on nice clients. You need to speak up for yourself. And by speaking up, I don't mean you need to tell people off. You need to be respectful nonetheless, but you need to make your case heard. People need to know that, no, this is also what I want. You know? People just keep quiet, and most people are scared, which I totally understand, But that's where you need the mentorship to tell you that you don't know this. So most people say to me, but dude, you had your brother, you had your dad to tell you these things. But I always tell them that my brother moved to South Africa and was the first person in our generation to work there. Some of these things he had to dig for himself, So which means no, people don't have an excuse. And now the world is even smaller. I mean, you go on LinkedIn, you can message whoever you want. There's so many networking opportunities that are available now. I think here in the UK, we host a lot of Psycha member engagements where people can come through. When I was here for my first year, I won't lie to you, I was so depressed because, as you know, here the weather is not nice. It's not that much of a nice place. It's a good working place, but in terms of social, you're taking a downgrade coming from South Africa social wise. So I was so depressed in my first couple of months, and I went to this one member engagement. At the time, I was not even part of the Psycha committee, and then I met Bruce. Bruce was the regional executive at the time. Very lovely guy. He's one of my mentors now. We speak a lot. And I asked Bruce, I was like, dude, I'm feeling like this. I'm feeling depressed. Some days I don't feel like waking up. Is this normal? Then he says, yeah. When I came, however, donkey years ago, I felt the same, but it took me about 1.5 years to 2 years to fully settle in.
Yeah.
And obviously at the time, yes, I understood what he was saying, but I didn't fully understand because I hadn't lived it. But when it gave me the courage to just keep going. And then surely after a year and a half, after 2 years, I would visit home and I would actually miss this place. I was like, oh, he was right. Now I'm actually starting to acclimatize, and get used to it.
Yeah.
But that's all coming from mentorship,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one thing I always advise to young aspiring people, that you have to raise your hand and look for mentorship. And once you make it, you have to do the same for people coming down. That's the best way you can repay it, because you're going to get it for free.
And I like that, some people think that it has to be structured. It has to be formal. You just go into an engagement, you speak to someone, and you get that kind of mentorship. Because I think, like, going back to maybe APC as well, maybe we can talk briefly about maybe the tips that people can take, because that a lot of people struggle with that exam. And I remember with myself as well, like, I was not reaching out to the right people. I was not talking to people. I was probably talking amongst people that were doing APC, but there are people that have passed in your firm. There are people that have, that are your seniors that you can ask. Yes, maybe you're in second year, third year, you are maybe more senior, but there are managers that you can ask. Even if someone, you can see that they're busy, but trust me, they'll take time to actually answer something. And sometimes it's just something small. It's something small. Yeah, it's so big. Like APC, as you say, like, you have to understand what's happening. Like, just reading the news every day, you don't know how that's going to impact your answer in the APC. So we've talked about maybe understanding the business as a whole, like understanding your topical standards. What are the other things that you can do? And I think it's very important to really put your hand up and ask. I know for myself, like, I have friends that are still doing the CA route, and I've never heard them ask me any question about, okay, what do you do when this happens? And I find it, I really find it, I'm surprised that, okay, you have a resource that you can ask, and you're not using that resource. And I have one friend of mine that does, like, she just calls me and just says, Linda, I need to make this decision. Do I go to a big four? Do I go to a smaller firm? What's the advantages of doing those things? And I think it's maybe also Black people not using the resources and not knowing how to use the resources that they have. It's okay. It's nice to say, oh, my friend is a CA, or I know this CA, but you're not using it for your benefit. And I think another thing that I wanted to touch on in terms of maybe approaching managers and approaching those directors, I think innate in being a Black person, we don't fear authority, but we don't really deal well with approaching authority. So maybe also maybe speaking on those things, like, you get into your first year, how do you set yourself up in such a way that you are friends with managers? Because a lot of people I've heard is, I'm just going to chill with my people. It's nice to gravitate towards Black people. It's nice, but we don't have a lot of Black managers. We don't have a lot of Black directors. So and one thing that we complain about is that, oh, Josh talks to the partner and they have drinks together, and I don't want to go to drinks. So obviously you're missing out on an opportunity. You're missing out on not going to those drinks. It's tedious. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be talking about the weather. You don't want to be hearing people talk about their expensive holidays. But that's the game. That's the game. Yeah. So let's talk briefly about that. Like, just guidance on APC and maybe just how to get out of our shells as well.
Yeah. So I'll touch on those too. So APC is an interesting beast. It's an interesting animal. And the reason why I say that is, all the way up until APC, you've been writing tests. So what is a test? A test is, you have been taught ABC in class, and then at the end of the year, the examiners pick concept from ABC and test you in the end. So you're tested on ABC. You were taught ABC, and that's where it ends. You're tested on ABC. So tests are easy for people who are fairly smart, like chartered accountants, and people who are aspiring for the chartered accountancy designation. So That's the first point why people get shocked with APC, because that's not a test. It's an assessment of professional competence. That's the that's the interesting part about APC. So for me, but what does that do for me? When I heard about APC, it got me excited, but for some people it can be daunting.
Scary.
It can be
Yeah.
very scary, because now you're being tested on competence. So what do I mean? um, you are asked to apply certain concept to a certain set of facts that are related to a certain entity or a certain scenario at a certain entity. But also, you're not only asked to answer on that, you also have to present it in a certain way. So it poses different challenges. These are all unique challenges, but these are challenges you should embrace nonetheless, because at work, that is exactly what you're going to be doing, especially if you move to the UK. I
Yeah.
write memos every day. Every day I write memos. I send clients emails every day. So it means I need to know how to talk to them on a daily basis. And these are not just emails saying, hey, what's up? No, I'm talking about concepts that affect their entities, that affect the growth of their entities, that affect their business. So which means not only should I be spot on knowing their
The
entity,
theory.
I should also apply the theory to their entity, and also I should have a relationship with them, because people don't do well when they don't have a relationship with the other person. Because they're people at the end of the day. Yes, they're a client, but they're also people. So the APC is testing all that. All right. I don't think the lecturers in university are teaching you these things,
No.
and I don't think they're obliged to teach you these things either. So which means there is a part to play from the students. There is a part to play. You need to research, you need to reach out to people. Um, you need to keep up with current affairs, like you just mentioned. You shouldn't just look hear news from the next door neighbor. You should know some of the things, not all of it, but know some of it, especially the financial stuff. And then we get to the workplace. Approaching how to approach managers and relationships. The best thing that my brother told me was, you need, when you are now a professional and you're in a professional setup, you need to be comfortable in being uncomfortable. So I tell my wife all the time, these small talks, I don't enjoy them.
Yep.
But I don't think you ever find someone who do small talk like I do. Like, I will go in there speaking to someone, I will small talk the hell out of that individual. I will offer whatever I can offer. I will buy my partner coffee. You know what I mean? So these are things that I'm gonna do, not because I like them, but these are necessary things. You need
Yeah.
to do it because you're in a workplace. No one owes you anything. You need to go out there and actively grab it. I understand it can be very scary. Like, I remember when I moved firms, it was daunting because all my life I've been doing auditing. And then I moved into this different thing, into CFO advisory. It was so scary for me because audit is structured. You know exactly what you're doing, you know exactly what you're doing when, and you fairly understand the audit concept. You're going to plan, you're going to execute, and you're going to get to give an opinion and finalize the audit. All the things are virtually prescriptive. If something changes, like now, revenue thing changed, so the walkthroughs are now more thorough here in the UK because of the FRC. It's all prescriptive. They will tell you that now we need you to do this, and if you don't do this, they'll fine you or whatever the case may be. So you always know what you're supposed to do. But now I'm in CFO advisory. It's unstructured. There's no structure there. You help a client as and when their need arises and whatever they need. So it was so difficult in the beginning because now you need your colleagues more than ever.
Yeah.
You have to go out there. And it's scary, trust me, to approach people you don't know. But you just have to do it. There is no other way. Or else you just stay at home. You just have to do it. Throw yourself out there. Give yourself a fighting chance, and see what happens. Throw yourself out there. Sometimes I've had conversations where I've frozen, just like some presidents that we've been watching lately, where I've just frozen speaking to the partner. But he actually realizes that, no, man, at least this youngster's trying, and he starts to throw things in there. Oh, did you watch that tennis, the Wimbledon match? I'm like, yes. Now we start. But because I've put myself there, that's why they're gonna do that. Sometimes you're gonna mess up. Sometimes it's normal. We're people. I would be lying if I told you that I've been a star boy, I've been a wonder kid all the time. There are times I've messed up and messed up pretty badly,
Yeah.
even at work where you've messed up pretty badly and you get a lashing, you get a beating from those partners. They'll tell you here in the UK, they tell you straight up.
Yeah.
They do not mince their words. They're gonna tell you, "Hey, here you messed up. You messed up. So you need to try better next time." But also, they build you up. They don't crush you to the ground. Why? Because my brother used to tell me that these bosses are humans at the end of the day. They're also lonely, so they need company.
Yeah.
So the moment you realize that everyone needs company, if you are there in the office in the morning, just say hi to your colleagues. You're not gonna lose anything. Like whenever I get into office, our team sits right when you enter. I always make sure just to say hi to everyone. I might not get a chance to speak to everyone, but I always say hi. At least once a week, I'll go with one of my bosses to coffee just to catch up socially or even performance, just to get regular feedback because it helps, right? Because here, that thing that I told you, that here they are very upfront with their feelings. So I'm also trying to use that to my advantage. So I go there and I really ask, okay, how am I doing? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to improve? They'll tell you the truth. They're not going to mince their words. They're not going to lie to you, because if you improve, their team improves as well. So,
Yeah.
so those things
Yeah.
are just put yourself out there. Do the things that you
Yeah,
find scary.
literally. Yeah,
Yeah.
literally put yourself out there. Let's just wrap up the conversation
All
talking
right.
about making it as a CA, and now what has that done for you, the designation, and maybe a bit about moving into to London as well.
Yeah.
How that has impacted you, and maybe yeah.
So the one thing I think where maybe I've evolved, and maybe me and my brother, because we've talked about this a lot, is we realized that for a lot of people, the destination is CASA.
Mm-hmm.
For me and my brother, we've realized that CASA is the
Is
key.
this that? Yeah.
Is the key to opening doors. If you use the key, you're going to open multiple doors, and it's up to you. But if you don't use that key and you say that key is your destination, then you just have it in your pocket. You're not going to explore anything. So for me, I always knew I wanted to explore different markets. And obviously, there's various reasons for it. The one reason is obviously I'm not South African by birth, so I'm not a citizen. But at the time, I had already garnered permanent residence status. So I could have also stayed in SA. I was loving it in SA. But I've always wanted to use that key to see what it can do for. And I thank God I opened some of the doors that I've opened, because coming to the UK was a major part in my career. I think the wealth of experience I've learned here in the UK comparing to what I used to learn when I was in SA. And not saying there's nothing bad about SA. I mean, SA, there's good learning curves there as well. But here, you are literally in the financial hub of the world. You're going to meet superstars from every corner of the world. I remember my first audit at BDO when I joined in the UK. I was working with guys from Singapore. I was working with guys from Brazil. And these kids were doing spreadsheets in like an hour,
Yep.
30 minutes. They're already handing it in. And that time, maybe you're 4 seniors on that audit, and each of you are running a different subsidiary. And I'm still working on my one. I'm like, shit. So now I have to step up. So it, but now you have to reach out. You're like, dude, how did you do that? And then people are willing to show you. People have been good in the sense that it's been a huge learning curve. Like I've learned a lot. And now pivoting from audit into CFO advisory, it's been amazing, because not only do I know the back end where you're executing and doing work for a client, I also know how to now manage relationships. And I think that's been the major step up, moving there, because you actually speak to the clients, you do the billing, you do the back and forth. I think you've billed me too much here, but dude, remember we did ABCD and we ended up doing the whole project management. Those are not comfortable
Yeah. Conversation.
discussions to
Yeah.
have, but you have to do it. That's how you grow. So it has helped me from a growth perspective. And I remember the other time my wife was asking me, so why do you want to leave audit, when I wanted to leave? And I told her that, no, I've been doing audit at the time, I'd been doing it for 5 years. And I told her, I've reached a point where I don't think I'm learning anything new. So it's not necessarily audit. I actually enjoyed what I was doing. I knew how to do it. I was good at it. But I felt that I was not learning anything new. So I know that that is not my destination. I need to learn more. I need to keep growing because I understand the brain is like a sponge. It's going to just expand. The more you feed it, the more it's going to expand. So I needed to learn new things. So that's why I pivoted into this role and as it comes. So yeah, the CA designation has given me that key for my family, for us to be able to open doors, for us to just live comfortably, you know. It's always been something that I'd craved. Like being at Monash, I had a friend who had a Range Rover Evoque, and I remember I used to look at him every time he would come to class, and then he would open the back boot with a remote, and then he'd get his a box of books. And I would have been walking from a taxi, you know, wearing my red Adidas pants. Everyone knew those pants in varsity, you know, and I'll be like, one day, you know, I also want to just live comfortably. I didn't want a red Range Rover, but I just wanted to be comfortable, just like they were, you know. So yeah, so I think CASA has afforded me that, and obviously this is just the beginning. You know, there's definitely more to come, because whenever I look at people who are 10 years older than I am or 20 years older than I am who are CAs, I see where they are, and I can see that okay, so these are the heights that CASA can give you. So that's what shows me that okay, I haven't arrived. You know, I'm just still scraping the surface. So yeah, I think CASA is a good key to have. You can
Yeah.
open doors for yourself. Uh, don't let it be the destination. Let it be the key.
That's so important. That's so important because we're sitting here and we're doing different things, but we have one designation.
Exactly.
And I think it's a very good analogy to say it's a key. And if you keep it in your pocket, you're not gonna do anything about it. And that doesn't mean that, you have to move countries or you have to do. It's just making sure that you are knocking at the right doors, you are opening those opportunities, and you are taking advantage of those opportunities. Because for myself as well, up until October in my final year, I didn't know I was going to move to London, and opportunity came, and I was like, why
You took
not?
it.
Let me do this for myself, but also for my family. I guess maybe just to wrap up the conversation, what is your encouragement to someone that's still in the journey, or maybe someone that has, that is going through another designation and they just trying to find that key?
Yeah. I think my biggest message would be it's worth it. You know, keep grinding, keep digging. We have such a privilege of having a good destination. We have very intelligent people who are at the helm of our destination, who are making sure every day they wake up just to make sure that we are a respectable designation around the world. So this is something whereby once you attain it, you get to be part of that boys club or that girls club, however you
Yeah.
want to define it. You get to be part of that club, and then you can flourish using it in however way you see fit. So it's like it's an investment in my view, because it's something that it's a brand. CASA is a brand. If you walk in any corner of the country in South Africa and you say CASA, more likely than not, they will know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. And more likely than not, they will give you some sort of respect and recognition just because people understand how difficult it is to get there. And people know how cherishable this designation is.
Yeah.
So I would always tell people, keep fighting. It is worth it. Dig deep if you have to. Put all your toes, 10 toes in. You're not going to regret it. At some point, it's always going to feel like it's impossible. And that feeling is very normal. Very, very normal. I wish I knew at the time. Because, sometimes you feel like, "Hey, am I wasting my time here? It's not coming
Yeah.
out exactly how you want it. But it's a journey, like when you start your CTA in January or February, up until you get to November or October, depending on when you finish, you actually realize the growth. When
Yeah.
you get to the end, you actually realize how you're such a different person. I remember in my CTA year, my mom came to South Africa at the time. She was not feeling well, so she needed to undergo surgery. But that gave me time to spend time with her because she was at home in SA with us. I remember when she was telling people at my graduation party, she's like, this dude, I was sick, but I never saw him. He was always studying. He would just come say, Mom, how you make whatever breakfast or whatever the case may be, give her pills. But most of the times I was tucked away somewhere trying to make it work, you know. It wasn't working. If people obviously they see the final result, they're like, wow, this guy is sick. But at that time, only me in that room knew I was trying to piece it together. The puzzle was not balancing, but I was trying. Every day I was trying. There's not a single day I was like, I'm gonna throw this puzzle in the bin. I always kept trying. I always kept digging because I knew it was worth it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I think one thing that I've learned from this conversation is the importance of being surrounded by the right people and just living an ordinary life, like every day putting in that effort is important and it gives you rewards. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Wonderful.
And sharing your experiences. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me. This is a lovely podcast that you have here. Keep going.
Thank you.
I can see this thing going big. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you on the next one.